shadows lurking, whispers in the hall, stories of the past. Spirits rise and fall, feel the cold around you as the fear creeps in.
Welcome to another edition of the Paranormal News Hour. I'm your co-host, Tom Spitaleri, and today, as you can see, Bill's not here today. Bill is on assignment, and we've actually had a very beginning busy of the year this year. It's been extremely crazy. By the time we're done this year, if we don't pick up anything else, we're going to have well over 100 radio shoots, TV shows, fundraising, cases, talks, etc. It's just been hectic. I mean, not only that, some of us have been down with that wonderful virus that went around, not COVID, but that flu virus. So it's been a fun couple weeks, but we're now moving forward and moving strong. We're going to talk today about what's going on out there in the world of the paranormal. There's a lot going on in the world of the paranormal. And we are actually planning a small Parafest for this year. I will announce it real soon on the Tom Live Show. And for the people here broadcasting at the historic LCATV Community, Lawrence Community Access TV station, we will be announcing it soon. It's going to be a fundraiser for the station, for LCAT. I'm working on the details as we speak. But there will be a Parafest this year, my friends. And I know there are people dying to come talk. I've already had a few phone calls. Friends of mine out there, good friends of mine, that said they'll come out and support this TV station as we continue to air our shows here in Lawrence. So that's always a fun thing. Recently, though, we're going to get into some recent sightings in the Merrimack Valley and beyond, but I was just notified today. I got a call from a source that there was a recent UFO sighting again over the North Andover Middleton line up there near the grocery store. So that's interesting because there's been a lot of sightings. There's been a lot of paranormal activity too. Recently, about 3-4 years ago, I was driving home on Pond Street one night. Pond Street's on the Methuen-Salem line. And all of a sudden, the windows in my car all went down right near Dairy Court. Dairy Court was part of the Searles Estate, which is that stone building, which is now that housing development, but the stone building's still out front. So there was that, which was real interesting. Recently, I got a call about someone had seen an old show I did, and they heard about the windows going down, so they drove down Pond Street. And in the same area, it happened to them. I use that road a lot, and it hasn't happened but that one time. So that's real interesting, I got to say. As far as the paranormal is concerned, having your windows just go down like it's nothing. Like I said, it was right near Dairy Court, which is part of the Searles Estate. Today we're talking about weird things that are happening that go bump into the night. As I've been doing more research now, I mean, there are triangles. You've heard my stories about the Bridgewater Triangle. I've been doing a lot of research in the Ossipee area. And, you know, when you look at the Bridgewater Triangle, with the help of other people who've been looking things up as things come up, if you look at the Bridgewater Triangle down in southeastern Massachusetts, around Abington, Freetown, East Freetown, Lakeville, Fall River, New Bedford, that area down there. There's a lot of things that go on. You got an airport, you got military down there, you got trains, you got swamp, you got Native American spirits. Now, let's bounce out of that triangle and go to the Ossipee Triangle. The Ossipee Triangle, we're going to do a full show on this, but this is just stuff that's going on, bump into the night that I'm discussing today. But the Ossipee Triangle starts in Salem, New Hampshire, at the haunted America Stonehenge, goes all the way up to haunted Jacksonville, New Hampshire. Not Jacksonville. And then all the way to historic Rochester, and then from Rochester back to Salem. Whew, what an area. So in that area, like the Bridgewater Triangle, you have UFO sightings. We have a lot of water. We have volcanic stuff going on in the Ossipee Triangle. The Ossipee Mountains are actually volcanic mountains. And then you have Bigfoot, Littlefoot, wood demons. They're smaller, big feet. You have a lot of stuff like that. Same in the Bridgewater area. But there's something missing. Or was it missing? Or is it really missing? So Bridgewater, Pacific Ring of Fire, all have something in common. They all have, it's an area, a flap area or an angle with paranormal Bigfoot, UFO, water, and all this other neat stuff that goes on. But they have military bases. And if you look, well, there's not an Air Force base or a military base anymore in the Ossipee Triangle. We all know about Pease Trade Port, used to be an Air Force base. So, yes, that is in the Ossipee Triangle. But breaking news, the Navy had their helicopter base in Manchester, actually Londonderry. And guy I know, his father worked on the plane engines over there. I found out recently. Helicopter engines, sorry. And that helicopter base is located, I believe it's now called, any guesses from the public? If not, I'll give it to you. Manchester Boston Regional Airport was a military base. So now you had two bases in the Ossipee Triangle, Pease Trade Port and that one. And then, of course, you also had some of the forts that were still active during World War II, where the Seacoast Science Center was, all the way up to World War II. So it makes it real interesting when you think about it. Why is these areas as active? Is it just the military? No. The military bases may help with the UFO stuff, but there's other reasons. There's Native American spirits. There's the spirits of old. This is New England, meaning we are new from England, but when it comes to being, this is the oldest part of the country, right here where we're living, here in New England. California, you guys came long after, right around the time that the Civil War ended and the westward expansion. So 1865, 1866. By then, we've already been here, over almost 200 years living in what we call the New World or New England. So it makes it really interesting at this point to learn that. And that's why we have all this activity. The Bigfoots, the Wood Knocks. This is old New England, and a lot of those mountains, yes. I've seen disasters on Route 16. I remember as a kid, there's woods. Today there's Home Depots and shopping plazas. And I'm only 84 years old. Oh, wait a minute, 48 years old. Imagine if I was 84, what that would have looked like 84 years ago, or 80 years ago, or 70 years ago. It was all woods. I remember as a kid, that was one of my first experiences. That was all woods up there on 16. Now they're developing it pretty quickly, but that's everywhere you go. But as you develop, the cryptids need a place to go. They don't have a place to go, so now you see more of them. There's a belief in the world about UFOs, and UFOs, well, they kind of pay attention to things and what's going on. And they're usually found around military bases. But wait a minute. Whoa, put the brakes on. Let's talk about this for a minute, okay? Roswell, New Mexico. Ossipee, New Hampshire. The Allegheny Mountains. Vermont, Maine, Montana. Wherever you want to go. Okay? So in the Ossipee Lake regions, there's Ossipee Lake, Big Ossipee and Little Ossipee. Little Ossipee is a sea creature in it, lake monster in it supposedly, and Big Ossipee. Well, as a kid, there are caves under Ossipee Lake, and I've seen cave drawings. I found ways into those caves, into the mountains and stuff. There are cave drawings of stuff coming out of the water, flying into the water and landing. They're hovering over water. Ossipee Mountains, volcanic mountains. Oh, wait a minute. Now we have Pease Air Force Base. We have the other Air Force Base, and I forgot the name of it, the one at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. Then, of course, we have the ones down the Cape. What they have on those things? They had nuke sites. They had energy like that. So what would make these UFOs come to these sites, to me, would be the energy. Would be the total energy. Whoops. We had a collapse on the phone. Sorry about that, folks. We had a little collapse here. We're going back to being live again. Okay, there we go. It must be the ghosts of Mrs. Muir. Nope. Okay, we're back. So, what powers these UFOs? Is it hydrogen water? Can they turn water into, say, rocket fuel to get you across the great divide of space? What is it? Is it underground lava? Is it leftover plutonium? I mean, Roswell, Manchester, Pease Trade Port, the Cape. I mean, there are military bases all over the place. And even in Mexico, Russia, wherever they're seen, they've always seen around near a military base or water. So what powers these things? So they can fly through our atmosphere, fly out of our atmosphere, and go back to whatever world they want to go to. That's interesting to me. So, is it because of that? That's a possibility. But we'll leave that for everybody to decide because there's no real facts on that. So, a couple of years back, there was a UFO right over 114, closer to Market Basket. That video was online. That was pretty interesting. There was another Loch Ness sighting 2 days ago, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Loch Ness was sighted again through the cameras at the loch. They have a camera set up in the loch. You could actually go online and just sit there and enjoy watching to see if you get a chance of a peek at the Loch Ness. And same with Champy. They got one set up at Champy, Lake Champlain too. So that alone is real interesting, I have to say. That they actually have these cameras set up and you could just sit there and enjoy watching what you see and don't see. If anyone has any questions, shoot me a message on Facebook. We are live on Facebook today. We are here at the James R. Ross Memorial Studios in historic, beautiful downtown Lawrence. Some of the other places that that is interesting, and it's interesting because of what goes on. All right. So, how old is New England? Do we even know? Well, we kind of do. We know when the Pilgrims got here. We know when the town started getting settled. We know there were Native Americans before us. We know there were Vikings before us. But how long have people been here for? That's a good question. And the answer is, I don't know. Now, why don't I know? Well, we know when Lawrence was formed. We know when Haverhill was formed. We know when Methuen was formed. Okay. 1641, 1726, and Lawrence was... I always forget Lawrence. Lawrence was a little bit later than that. But if you're familiar with this area, we got America's Stonehenge, 4,000 years old. Who built that? Do we know? Was it a Native American tribe? Could have been. Very interesting. Was it something more? Could it be tied to something bigger? The answer is yes. This won't answer who built this because there are beliefs that natives did this. There are beliefs that the Phoenicians did this. There are beliefs that the Vikings. I mean, it's all over the map. But we know Stonehenge is 4,000 years old. We know from other teams that there is paranormal activity at Stonehenge. It's clearly written in a lot of books. It's been written about activity all the way back to Gilbert's History of Salem that was published in the 1800s. So it's pretty well known. Okay? But what most people don't know is there's more to America's Stonehenge than meets the eye. You have the Danville Beehive. What is the Danville Beehive? Well, it's a stone structure in Danville on a walking trail right near the Danville DPW. I forgot the name of the road, but if you Google Danville Stone, it'll come up. Go check it out. It's on a wooden open trail, meaning it's open to the public. It's a public trail. It's like every city and town has their trails along their rivers or inlet rivers or wherever. And you go walking. Get some exercise. You start looking. That stone structure is roughly about 1,400 years old. Who built that? And here's the bigger question. We're sitting where? Oh, in historic, beautiful, haunted downtown Lawrence, Massachusetts. Anyone know how the area was settled? Give you a quick history lesson. Haverhill, Massachusetts covered almost all the way to Sandown. That way. Through Salem. And this side of the Merrimack River, so North Lawrence. And Methuen. Methuen was not even there. It was all Haverhill. And then South Lawrence was the Andovers, not North Andover. That's newer, but the Andovers. You thought, wow, interesting. Yes, it is. So, if Stonehenge is about a little over 4,000 years, according to theirs, Danville Beehive is probably about 1,400 years old. But here's the key secret. That's not the only beehive located out there. I'm familiar with a few others, but I'm not going to give away locations because the families have asked us to keep it secret, and we will. And I can understand why you wouldn't want people traipsing through your backyard looking at this beehive hut going, well, is this native? Is this Viking? Or what is it? So we just let it go. It's the best thing to do at this point. And we just quietly go in there, look at things, and see what's going on, keep an eye on things. So far, so good. Not much to report, just a lot of good things going on. Um, so that's one positive spin out of all of this. The next positive spin out of all of this is who did that? Well, we don't really know. Um, there are Viking burial mounds in Newburyport. Vikings were well known along the Machias Bay of Maine, which was then Massachusetts, or even before the settlement. Maine came later. That was Massachusetts originally, part of Massachusetts Bay Colony. Um, so we don't really know who settled these. If you look, though, there are energy lines. And this is where it gets interesting. They're called ley lines. Ley lines are usually the lines that energy runs through, and they usually start at a point, end at a point. Okay. If you look at the ley lines for America's Stonehenge, they line up with England's Stonehenge, or Easter Island, and the other lines go through a place called, downtown Tripoli. And of course, downtown Tripoli has changed a lot because of all the war and battles they've had over there. But, so, does that lead us to believe that there might have been another peoples here, European people, before Christo Columbus? Or the other one who married her own family? So, with that in mind, keep that always open. What's really going on here in New England? Yep. All right, we're off the air as far as the phones are concerned. We don't know what happened to the phone, but I think my phone is broken, actually. Something chipped out of this, I think, earlier. So we're off there. But that's all right. We will continue here. I don't know why it keeps going off like that, but it did. It could be the spirits, too. You never know. Spirits are weird like that. Spirits are very weird. That's just odd. It's all the ghosts and Mrs. Muir. Okay. That's weird. All right, we're kind of back. It's stuck on one. There we go. That's odd. All right. We're not going live tonight. That's got canceled. Something happened with the internet. The internet went down too. It's been a fun night, but that's what happens when you do a ghost show. Ghostly things do happen, and it's kind of interesting to see what happens with ghosts. But back to the stone structures. These stone structures are all over Sandown, Hampstead area, and it's real interesting to see why and what's going on. And why this is doing what it's doing. No, it's saying I got internet. That's weird. That is odd. Okay. Yeah, that's odd. We're not getting internet. All right, so the internet went down in the area. That didn't help at all. So back to the stone structures. Um, those stone structures are all over New England. We have them in Connecticut, in Gungy Swamp. So they're in Rhode Island, Maine, Massachusetts. And they're located, some of these things are located in these triangles. So I was trying to get to earlier. And what happens in these, so this is even more interesting. So now we have stone structures. Bridgewater Triangle's got them, Ossaby's got them. They all have these commonalities in them, these flap areas or triangles. I tend to deal with what my friend Paulino started calling flat areas because if you go outside the triangle, which is a great place to start, at least you have borders to go start your research on, you'll find out a lot of stuff happens that's inside the suggested triangle outside or just outside of it. So that's why he discovered it and coined them as flap areas. And he, God rest his soul, a very good friend of mine. And so these flap areas with all this energy and people moving in and out and people having all sorts of responses to the paranormal in these flap areas, which makes life even more interesting. And one of these days, we'll probably break the code of why some of these areas are more haunted than others. But it's an ongoing research project that will never end. There's stuff on that I can't even talk about, but about these areas because they're private homes, people's lives. They don't want to be turned upside down by, investigators knocking on their front door going, "Oh, I heard on a podcast or a TV show your house is haunted. I'd like to come in and talk to you about it." And they don't have the skill or the profession to even do it. So that's why people don't like their names and addresses. And that's why we will never give out the names and addresses. Now, just outside of the Bridgewater, the Ossaby Triangle, not too far south of Salem, New Hampshire, is a town called Andover. There's a place out there, very mystical, very native-like. It's believed to be Native American. It's called Turtle Mound. Turtle Mound is located near Haggett's Pond off of 133. It used to be private in somebody's backyard, and years ago, I was lucky enough to be on a team that actually investigated that area. And I'm not going to talk about the investigation because I didn't do it. I was part of another team. And out of respect, I wouldn't do that. But let me tell you, I will say this from a historic standpoint. There was definitely Native American activity that lived in and around that stone, which was pretty cool. There was the soil, if I remember correctly, like the soils up in Danville at the Beehive, all tested metallic soils. So that's even more interesting. Now we have metallic soils in 1,500-year-old rock sites. So where's that metal all coming from? Makes it even more interesting and intriguing. So you have that. So we all have all these structures around us. with a history and people and stories being passed down and what could happen or didn't happen. Oh, looks like I got my internet back. Nope. So we'll see how, we'll see where the stories take us because it's real interesting where the stories do take us. Um, and we'll see why one day, um, why these stories are told and why they weren't told either. When you look at the old history books of this area, you don't really see much about Stonehenge, the multiple beehives in the Danville area. Haggis Pond, Andover, there's a little write up about that. But really, I mean, what was here? Were these all native sites or were they something else? Were they something else that didn't go bump into the night? It's really interesting if you want to know the opinion of many who have researched this field. Um, it is real interesting. And one of these days we will have the answers we're looking for. I have faith in research, historians, and good people out there that are researching this stuff every day. Other things we can move on into. Have you ever seen a ghost? Well, that's asked a lot. And the answer is yes. I've seen them all over the place. Inside people's homes, cemeteries, I'm in them almost every night. Restaurants, when I go out to eat, I've gotten tugged I don't know how many times. But I have. Which is real interesting to be tugged like that. In fact, there's a restaurant not too far from here. Panera Bread, Route 114. Two children have been seen. Not Panera. Yeah, Panera Bread. Two children have been seen in the parking lot. And keys have been moved and played with inside the building. So that's interesting. I know many people have told me that story. Then there's Bertucci's on 114. The back room, strong female presence, called to be, could be the former owner. Native presence picked up there too. Also feel like someone is sitting with you. Yeah, every time you go there and you sit in that back area, you'll always feel like you're not alone. Even if you're with somebody, you'll feel like you still got a third person, a third wheel, enjoying dinner with you. Studio 2 off of exit 59 off of 101 in Exeter, New Hampshire. Upstairs, the locked doors the doors get locked from the outside. Books, flowers, often fall off of shelves and hit people in the storeroom. Dark figures seen near the windows. So it's real interesting. I mean, when you think about here's another building in Exeter. Exeter is actually part of that triangle. So, when you think about it, you go, Wow, look at this. Londonderry on Mammoth Road, the coach stop, 1810 restaurant, shadows of a figurine of children and adults at the restaurant. I did feel native spirits. I ate there once and went, that's more than enough. With the tugging, the food was great, but the spirit activity just was, and that's me. I went for my birthday, so I actually had a pretty good time because I was celebrating my birthday with some friends and celebrating birthday with friends and just relaxing and having ghosts tug at you all night long. And we got there late, so when we got there, they were, at the end of the dinner. So it made it even more interesting. I've always found a lot of that stuff real interesting. And enjoyable, too. And that's what I've always done. And as long as you continue to enjoy what you do it. So the coach stop was another place. That we've been to that out to eat and had some activity to it. So when you get a house and you know it's haunted and you're going, why? It's another question that's asked of us all the time. And here's the answer to the why. It could be many things why it's haunted. From natives to an old burial ground that might have been there, a family plot that might have been there 200 years ago that disappeared, and they just turned a big family lot. There was all woods and cattle fields into a housing development. And when that happens, sometimes you upset the spirit world that's there. And it's kind of sad that they get upset like that, but there's not much you could do. I mean, these people are trying to still live their lives, and we're disrupting them. Now, how are we disrupting them? Well, how are they living their lives? They're still living in the time on this great planet of ours when they were alive. That could have been 50 to 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And they're not ready to be taken. So they just want to be left here. So those spirits do remain here. Sometimes a tragedy hits and they're not ready, like I said, ready to be a car accident, a murder, suicide, anything like that. They're not ready. They weren't really ready to go to the next level, to be crossed over when they passed on. They just passed on. And so sometimes they hold on to their last moment. And they hold on good, bad, or indifferent. So it's not like they're holding on thinking they're going to get better. They could hold on and it gets a whole lot worse for these people. But they're holding on hope. And that's what they're doing, hope. And as long as you can hold hope out, hope will get you through almost any type of natural disaster, problems. People that, keep thinking there's no hope. And that's what happens when we're on a lot of cases. People think, wow, there's no hope left. Well, we bring that hope for you on a case. We're going to tell you at the end of the case, we're not done. We're just going home for the night. I don't mind going back to house 6 or 7 times as long as we can help these people. And every step of the way, it's getting better. I will go back. Because to me, it's worth it. And that's pretty much where things stand on that era and stuff going on. As far as like cryptids, I've seen maps of cryptids all over Essex County. In the 70s, Methuen, Haverhill, Newburyport were hotbeds for sightings of Bigfoot. And that's what makes, when you have that going on, you have all of this. And things are lining up perfectly, and all these worlds are starting to line up. It makes the paranormal seem normal, to me at least. And that's what's happened in these areas. The paranormal has become the norm in most people's lives. The UFO researchers, the ghost hunters, the cryptids. And like I said, here in the Merrimack River Valley, late 70s, early 80s, I've seen reports of Bigfoot anytime from 1974 to 1987 sighted here in the Merrimack River Valley. And for some reason, those reports are getting harder and harder to find. So if anyone is listening and ever seen a Bigfoot here in the valley, please reach out, because I would love to talk to you about it. I would love to see your opinion of what's going on with the Bigfoot presentation. The Bigfoots coming into the area. 78 Newburyport, Methuen, 1968 Haverhill UFOs, and Methuen off of Washington Street. But I could see Bigfoots in Methuen, especially when in the late 70s, early 80s. I remember mid 80s, most of the east end and the west end of Methuen were all woods. So I can actually see that. We had bear sightings as a kid, not too far from my house in Methuen. And the Bigfoot, probably the most elusive creature out there. Now, what is Bigfoot? Bigfoot's like any other cryptid, an unidentified animal species, so that's why it's called a cryptid. We haven't been able to pin one down and say, we know where they're reproducing, we know where they hang out, and this is their area, and that's it. They got to do something, and interdimensional creatures seem to be the answers for most Bigfoot. And wow. Where was I going with that one? I just had a little misstep there. Still not over this whatever I had, so it's making this show a little more interesting for me. The only thing not seen as I was going to get into here, like Forest Lake, Haggett's Pond, there's been no such that I have ever found about lake monsters. But the river supposedly had one in there. I remember reading an old newspaper article that dates back to the 1800s, and it said there was a monster seen in the Merrimack River in two different locations. One down there, Newburyport Harbor, and I can't remember where the other one was, but, are there river monsters and lake monsters like Champlain? I don't think so. I've been all over this area and I've never seen one. But that could prove me wrong one day. We're actually going to move on from this subject, and I want to start talking about one thing, and then we're gonna wrap up. We're gonna wrap this show up in a few minutes. But if there are people out there listening right now, and it is that giving time of season again, Lawrence Community Access TV, to keep bringing you shows, could use a little help with donations. Um, we don't have the contract anymore, as some people probably already heard or did not hear. So we're running things on donations and shoestrings. We are going to keep going to events. We're going to keep editing those events. We're going to keep putting them out on our YouTube page. So if you people at home want to help out, you can mail a donation to Lawrence Community Access TV, 468 Essex Street, Lawrence, Mass. So if you can do that for the station, then we can keep producing these shows and having a good time. I'm going to have a great time up here every time I come up and do my show. I wish I could do this show every night, but my schedule doesn't allow it. So, but I know we've got a few minutes left, but I'm going to actually, because of the tight schedule of the Paranormal Zone, which both of them should be out by tomorrow, I got to get ready for the Paranormal Zone. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And we'll catch you on another edition of the Essex County Ghost Project Paranormal News Hour show here at Lawrence Community Access TV. I want to thank everybody at home for tuning in. And I don't know what happened on the World Wide Web, but we had some issues with the World Wide Web. But I want to thank people there, too. Have a great evening, everybody, and thank you. I'm heading back to the crypt to get ready for the next show. Good night, everybody.
In shadows lurking, whispers in the hall, stories of the past, spirits rise and